The following is an encore performance of The Voice of Bold Business.
Everybody, it's Tuesday, May 8th. Welcome to The Voice of Bold Business Radio. I am your host, Jess Dewell, and boy, do we have a show for you today. It's interesting because every once in a while I throw a wrench in the works, and I learned right before we came on that there were some words that I used that made it a little difficult to prepare, but you know what? These guys and gals, they know exactly what they're talking about, and they are going to rise to the challenge, and I'm going to be surprised because I would not let them tell me what they had been thinking about and practicing. We're talking about financial Easter eggs in business. And for those of you that know what an Easter egg is outside of the holiday, that you know what this is going to be about. It's something surprising and different and unexpected that maybe might not be exhilarating and might not be super sexy by any sense of the words as that goes, but is still a treasure. It's maybe novel, maybe exciting, maybe straightforward. When that light bulb goes on, you know, that message that you've heard 10 million times, and that one time the light bulb goes on and it has a whole different meaning. That's what we're talking about today. So there is something in this show for you. And I want to say, I'm excited to have three wonderful panelists with us today. The first is Kris Tower, who is a managing director of American Portfolios Financial Services and is a certified financial planner and a qualified plan financial consultant. We also have Kittye Tilford, a wealth advisor, and she provides personalized advice implementing holistic financial plans that coordinate into all aspects of our financial lives. And we have Kristi Sullivan, owner of Sullivan Financial Planning, providing guidance on financial questions for individuals, households, and employees. You will get to meet them right after this.
Welcome to The Voice of Bold Business, the show that provides everything smart leaders need to evaluate situations, build relationships, and create solutions. Jessica Dewell candidly talks about the skills necessary to build tenacity and do more with less. And now, here's Jessica.
Okay, everybody. Kittye, Kristi, Kris. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I was thinking, right, how do we break the ice here? Usually I talk about cups of coffee or tea or something like that. For everybody who's listening in today, everybody here is from Denver. This is a kind of, not only is it neat that everybody's from Denver, it is neat that there are four of us from Denver on one show. And it's going to be a whopping 80 degrees. I've already got the air conditioner on in my house. How about you guys?
Almost. Just using the fans still.
Using the fans? Hold out.
I'm a financial planner and cheap. I don't run the air conditioning until July.
Yeah, I turned on my attic fan. So I have an attic fan rather than an air conditioner, but I did use it this week.
I have a wife that's always cold, so it will be some time before an air conditioner is on in our house.
That's hilarious. My hair, I realized today I have curly hair like you, Kristi, and I actually spend a lot of time to make my hair look like Kitty's. It's not happening from this moment forward. I'm like,
summer hair, just embrace it, go with it.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Between sun hats and sweat, I'm like, ponytail.
Give yourself the time. Go curly. Join the sisterhood, Jess.
That's right.
Just be thankful for hair.
Exactly. All right, well, we're going to jump right in. Our audience has been prepared and prepped for this program where we're talking about financial Easter eggs in business. And when you agreed to join me, I gave you a question, so at least you had a chance to think about it. Oh, planners extraordinaire. So I want to hear from you, Kris. What's an Easter egg that you can share that your financial background has given you that also helps you successfully run your business?
Sure. So an Easter egg that I believe in is that the less I do, the more I accomplish. And that sounds somewhat paradoxical, but in the investing world, there's a tendency for do-it-yourself investors to be in and tinkering with their investments all the time. Every time there's a headline or a news story or their brother-in-law gives them a great piece of advice, they're in changing their portfolio around. And this actually often significantly affects their returns and poorly. Dalbar did a study that looked at 30-year returns of the average investor versus the markets. And the markets did around 10%, where the average investor only actually realized about 4%. And it's because they were going into and out of the market at the wrong time. And so, over a 30-year time horizon, that's, over $100,000 on a $10,000 investment. And in business, I also found that that is true. When I was a young entrepreneur and maybe the only person in my business, I was the person doing everything. And there's a tendency to kind of keep doing that. And so when I say I do less, the more I accomplish, it's not that I work any less, it's that I focus on the things that are most important to the business. I have a finance degree, I've worked in business my whole life, but the first thing that I outsourced as an entrepreneur was my bookkeeping, right? It's a low return on my time. So that's what I mean by the less I do, the more I accomplish. One, in the investing aspect, not tinkering too much, but as a business owner, really trying to focus on the things that are key for me as the owner to be doing.
Thank you, Kris. That was a very complete answer. Structured, too. I can tell. You guys, I am like, I rebel against structure. So you might hear that come up a lot because I'll be like, ooh, I am in the presence of greatness, because this is one thing that I know exists and it's really important, and I try my best to avoid it. So here we go. Kittye, tell us, what is one Easter egg that you can share that your financial background has given you to successfully run your business?
Well, as financial advisors, we have the privilege of helping breathe life into people's dreams. So we're dream weavers. And that's because the things that we want to accomplish often require money and or time. And being constrained in either area can impede our ability to pursue the things we're most passionate about. And Jess, I know that you have a similar mission with the Voice of Bold Business Radio and wanting to help others pursue their passions. So we build into people by educating and coaching them. So my Easter egg was discovering that what we do as wealth advisors extends beyond financial stewards, being financial stewards. By coaching clients through their life journeys, we offer hope and build confidence. Some of the things that I do include helping clients with Social Security claiming strategies, performing financial projections, and coming up with strategies to help clients meet their goals. So that was my Easter egg moment, was that we're not just helping people with their money, but we're actually helping them accomplish their goals. And that's actually what's most exciting to me about the business.
So you have a plan and you get the goals and you build confidence and hope along the way.
Exactly.
More structure. All right.
That's what you got.
I'm telling you. Okay. This is alrighty. This is good. Kristi, we want to hear from you. What's the one Easter egg that you can share that your financial background has given you to successfully run your business?
Okay. So as a planner, of course, I gave this a lot of thought. And what I came up with was a lesson that I learned really, really early in my career. I started off in employee benefits right after college. I worked in the group sales office for a large benefits provider here in Denver. And I worked in both the medical insurance area and the 401k retirement plan area. So as such, I learned about both kinds of aspects of your financial life. So it's a really fortunate thing. I didn't realize at the time. I was very lucky that I learned as such a young adult how to navigate the medical system and the importance of starting to save and invest early. And I think I took that for granted, that everyone knew those things and understood those things. And it was interesting, as I would work with the home office, so the internal folks at the company, I found that many of the people who worked in the medical side of the business did not participate in our own company 401k. And many people who worked on the 401k side of the business did not understand, and they were using their medical benefits improperly and paying all this extra money. So it was a lesson learned in that the languages of our careers are all different. I would say that we in financial services sometimes take for granted that the things that we are talking about to our clients make sense to them, even though it's English. It's not English the way we're speaking it to clients. I have used that in my business to try to slow my roll down and really break down how I communicate, both in written and conversation to clients and friends even. And I've also used it on myself, on my own business and in my own life. So when I'm talking to my kids' teachers and they're talking about the CPAP tests or whatever, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Stop it with your teachery language and explain to me as a parent what I need to know here. Because that's what I have learned in business, is that my language is not the same as other people's career language. Or if you're in a medical situation and you need to make medical decisions, and doctors and nurses are talking over your head, just stop them and say, I don't understand what you're talking about. Please explain that further. And you have to do that in your business and your personal life all the time.
That was not structure. That was behavior.
Wild woman. It's my curly hair.
It is. It is. I should have gone out of my way to have extra curly hair today, because it would have worked. Had it not been.
Next week, I'm going to tune in and see about your hair.
Thank you. We've got to fix that. I'm telling you what. All right. So we have some structure. Kittye and Kris, you were talking about structure. Kristi, you're more action-oriented, behavior-oriented. I kept hearing the words stop, slow down, stop, slow down, take the time. And so this is going to be a really great discussion, because I'm also an action-oriented person. So we have two great differences to come at this with. And one thing that was in all of them that I want to pull out and go from here is, and I'm going to stick with, Kittye, the word you used, creating confidence. I would like to hear from you how the Easter egg you found in your business increased your own confidence as a business owner.
Well, the thing that has been marvelous to me is that we have so much education, and sometimes it's easy to take it for granted, the things that we know about different topics and things that are very relevant to people's lives, and imparting even a small amount of that knowledge. I mean, something as simple, I shouldn't even call it simple. I mean, that's an overstatement, but when you can unpeel the onion of people's lives as far as the decisions they're making financially, and help them to understand why we have taxes on things, for instance, or why it makes a difference when you start claiming Social Security at a certain age, what impact that can have. Those are things that are pretty common knowledge to a lot of us in the industry, but for Joe Average, they may have no idea, or they, like to Kris's point, they may have heard something from their brother-in-law that is not true. It may not even be true, or it may not be relevant to that situation. So when you can educate people, that helps to build confidence. They're not as afraid. I've had clients come in and they're uncomfortable with money, and just taking the time and letting them know, no, you're not. There's nothing to be afraid of or feel ashamed about. And that's one of our purposes, is to help ease the burden of the decisions that you have to make, to help educate them, like I said. And I think education is what builds confidence. So I hope, does that make sense what I just said?
It does, it makes sense. I was just pausing because I can talk all day long. This is what I was just pausing to make sure that anybody else who wanted to jump in can.
Okay.
It's interesting, and I'll give you an idea. I'll give you an example from my perspective. One of the things, when it comes to the finances of my business, I tell a story once in a while, and I'm ashamed of it and kind of proud of it at the same time. I don't pay bills in my household because when we were newly married and internet banking had just started, I paid the trash company. And I was supposed to pay the trash company $40. But there was this thing called decimal points that I thought they would just stick in there. So I ended up paying the trash company $4,000. So yeah.
And it happens.
It happens. I own it, right? And that's just one example. And those types of things, anybody who has a bad experience with money, and I'm using that one because it's cheeky. At least my husband can laugh at it now. It was before, I mean, we're in the middle of running of our own business. So not only was it not cool because we were strapped for cash, we were business owners, and that just meant more stuff to hit the fan all at once. But beyond that, it's one of those things that's like, really, I guess I can't do this. I mean, immediately, that was the thing. I can't do this. And the more that I look at the finances in my business and the more that I make a plan and continue to use it and make decisions with it, the better I get at the overall concept of what are the financials that my business has and how can I use them more? How can I leverage them more? And I have to say, about 20 years later, my confidence is finally coming back. It's just slow.
Well, I think you raise an excellent point in that, as humans, I think we learn a lot more from our failures than we do our successes, even in business. And I think that your point that confidence returns, I mean, I think that's kind of what happens, at least from my own experience in business, is early on, you feel like everything has to go right in order to be successful in business. And, I always joke with people that work for me, it's failure, success, on to the next failure, success, and you move on to the next thing. Rarely do we seem to get things right in business right on the first try. So it's more about being able to be nimble and react, and also, take appropriate risks. Every risk you take can't be one that puts you out of business if you're wrong.
I must say, Kris has lots of great pithy quotes and sayings that I wish I were writing them down so I could steal, but I'm not. But so back to your question, Jess, about what builds confidence in your business. And then to Kris's point too, I think building confidence in your clients sometimes does take telling those stories, like the $4,000 trash bill, or I had a personal story when I first went into business, I was frauded. I was frauded into this bad, it was theft, but I willingly sort of let myself be goaded into it. It took me, to tell this on the internet is a big deal. It took me about 3 years to tell my family about it. I was so horrified. I was like depressed. I mean, it was a big deal. And here I'm a financial planner. This sort of stuff doesn't happen to us. But when I was able, the point is you do come back, you've learned a valuable lesson, even though it was a hard lesson. And to be able to tell a client that, to tell them your mistakes, to tell them about your $4,000 trash bill, that gives them confidence in you, that you're not just there to lecture them and point a finger at them, but that you're human too. You've made mistakes and learned from them, and that you're there to help them not make the mistakes that you did perhaps, or that you sympathize with the mistakes they've made. I will say that, I don't know, Kittye and Kris, you could step in here and say, do you have clients very often coming to you apologizing for the financial state that they're in? I'm so sorry, I should have done better. This is the first time I've met these people. And they say they're sorry, they're very embarrassed about where they are. I have people apologize to me all the time. And I think, why do you need forgiveness for not doing certain things or doing things you wish you hadn't? We've all been there. So that's definitely a thing that I've learned, is just to be approachable, let people talk to you, tell them your mistakes if you're comfortable with that, and then you can move forward and be more of a trusted advisor that way.
Yeah, I think there's oftentimes a lot of embarrassment that people aren't where they should be. I think there's this image of how, and unfortunately, I think as an industry, we don't maybe help people there, because we tell them that they should have started saving at 22, and if they don't when they're 45, they think they're defeated already. And in all honesty, the vast majority of people don't start saving at 22, even though we tell them they should. And so I think there is some embarrassment when people come in, but I try to let them know that most people don't go see the doctor when they're feeling fine. They go and see the doctor when they're not feeling well. And that's kind of how it needs to be with finances too. If everyone was able to do everything they're supposed to do in their own finances, the three of us would not be in business, right?
That's right. We live for financial mistakes, don't we?
And it's my better half works in medicine, and so, I go to the doctor, I can be self-conscious about, my body or something else that's going on with me, but I'm just another body that they're seeing a bunch of that day, right? They have no hangups about anything that's going on with me. Most of my hangups are all internal. And that's kind of how it is with clients. I tell them, you have all kinds of emotional baggage about your money, your financial past. I have no emotional attachment to any of that. I'm here just to give you advice that's in your best interest, to talk to you about things that I've seen be more successful and things less successful. The choice is always yours. But, I also think that people are awfully hard on themselves, unnecessarily so, when it comes to their finances oftentimes.
I think that's true in other parts of their business too. I mean, what Red Direction does, the company that I run and my team of 6, that's what we do. We work through the problems that crop up in business, and it's the same concept. There's an embarrassment. I am really ashamed that I have to talk to you, Jess. There's a fear, I don't know, I did everything right, yet I'm still here. And I have to tell you, being in a situation where somebody has to decide that there's a problem to get help, I wish our culture was different. I wish our society was different, because I like to celebrate those moments. I'm getting ready to do this new thing, or we're going to launch this new product, or we want to outsource this thing and we have no idea where to start. Awesome. It's so great. You've started by saying this is what you want to do and not needing to know all of the answers. And that's what I hear some of what you're sharing is we don't need to know all the answers. And maybe we need to do a check-in with the shoulda, woulda, couldas that might be the baggage that might be around. Easing the burden. I mean, isn't that what we're all here? You guys are a service industry. We're, all of us, I'll say you guys inclusively, all of us are in a service related industry. And when you're talking to somebody about that they come to you feeling ashamed, or they're not quite sure, or they have their guard up, right? Somebody else wronged them, and here they are at your door. And as a service provider, we all have those. We all have those times where we're overcoming past experiences of these people. And so now we're talking sales a little bit. This is one of those things. The objection is showing itself in the hello. So how do you work with those people and get to the real reason that they're showing up on the phone or in person with you?
Well, I would say that we like to get people when they're in a vulnerable position, because they are often more willing to listen to what we have to say. And we can both be vulnerable, not just the client, but we as advisors can be vulnerable with them and tell them the stories that we've heard and why what we have to offer them is valuable. So we embrace people who are coming to us broken, basically, because we're all broken in some way or another. And I like your point, Jess, about taking chances, and our society doesn't reward that as much as I wish that we did. And we're performance-based. We're only going to applaud you if you can show us your successes. We're not interested in seeing the scars of your past, but in fact, that is where we grow, to Kris's point. So we like to see people come in who are vulnerable because we can, their hearts are open for us to help them, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, I think as business owners that we all have this kind of sometimes thought that we're terminally unique, right? We're the first person to ever have problems hiring our first employee. We're the first person to ever have problems with cash flow. We're the first person to ever have a problem with client retention, whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. Years ago, I joined a group, and it's kind of one of those mastermind groups where in order to be in the group, everyone's got to own their own business. And I call it group therapy, and we get together a couple times a month. And at this point, I'm one of the guys that's been in there the longest. We have somebody new come in and they explain a problem that they're having in their business. We always jokingly tell them, well, you're the first person that's ever had this problem. And then we all laugh, right? because, and then there's the wisdom of the crowd thing. We all kind of talk about that person's issue and what we've had success with. And so that's kind of what I talk to clients about too. I try to use humor to diffuse the situation. If we can kind of laugh at ourselves, it seems a little less serious, right? And so that's what I often tell clients. And I tell them as one of my first questions when we sit down and meet together for the first time, I say, most people don't just wake up one morning and say, I think I'm going to go see a financial planner today. There's something else that's been going on, right? And so I ask them, what has been going on? What's prompted you that you think you need to come in and see me today? And there's always something. And most of my first meeting with new clients is talking about their relationship to money, how they feel about money, how their parents felt about money, and what money means to them. And it can be very different things for different people. And more importantly, between a couple. Recently we had a couple come in and I asked the husband about his background, and he was from a family that never had money, was on government assistance part of the time growing up. And, money was always an issue. The wife had come from a family that the dad was a professional. Money was never a concern. And so, he very much had money as a scarcity mindset, and hers was very much an abundance mindset. That's a very different psychological approach to money in that same household. And so there's a lot of opportunity for us to do some education and for them to talk to each other about money, because I find oftentimes even couples don't talk to each other about their history with money.
Okay, and I'm going to say that's even true with business founders and business partners and
Absolutely.
in general. And so I think that's a really key point, that everything we talk about on this show is really great parenting advice. It's also really great management advice. It's also really great relationship advice at home and at work. So, I mean, all the way around. Yes. Did you want to add something, Kristi?
I'll piggyback on what Kris said a little bit. I too open just every new conversation with a prospective client with, what made you decide to look for a financial planner? And that's a great open-ended question. I think as business owners, you could, if you own a trucking company, what made you decide to look for me? Is it that you were unhappy with your previous transportation situation, or are you growing? So that just that open-ended question and allowing clients to just talk, because as we all know, I mean, this is nothing new, that people would rather talk about sex with their parents than money. It's sensitive. And so just to have an objective, I don't want to say disinterested, but not a friend, not a parent to talk to money about, a lot of times just opens the floodgates for people. And I've actually had friends ask me, hey, Kristi, would you refer me to a financial planner that isn't you? Because I don't want to, it's too sensitive. I don't want to talk to you about my finances. And I completely understand that. So it's emotional. I think maybe, giving people a safe place to talk about what their stresses are, same with business owners, same with a mastermind group, which I'm in one this year as well. And it's great to talk about, like one of the business owners in my mastermind group recently came to us with, I'm just so burnt out. Does anyone else ever just get sick of having their business? Well, yeah, I bet, Kris, I bet you're not the first person to ever have that problem, right?
Okay, so the cat's out of the bag. Everybody finally caught on that you're all in wealth creation and financial services and things like this. And so I've got a whole bunch of questions.
Okay. We have answers.
Right, I bet you do. The first is going to come from R. Scott here on the Voice of Bold Business. He is asking, can someone speak to the magic of compound interest?
That sounds like Kris. That sounds like a Kris question.
Yeah.
It's the most powerful law in the universe, if I'm told. Yeah, I mean, in most simple terms, it's earning interest on your interest. So for example, at the beginning of the segment, I talked about the difference between what financial markets have returned versus what individual investors have returned. 10% for the markets, 4% for investors. So 30 years ago, if you would have put $10,000 away and you were the average investor and earned 4%, you've had about $32,000. Good money. If you had been the market and put $10,000 away and earn 10%, you'd have about $175,000. That is the magic of compounding, is the earning money on your money as it's earning money, if that makes sense.
I'd like to chime in too. That concept is what propelled me into the industry. I mean, I was originally a medical research technician when I first graduated from college, and I decided to change my career. So I went to DU and I took a career assessment test, and I was off the charts for business. So I went to DU and got my MBA. And when I took my first finance course and learned the magic of compounding, I was just hooked. I mean, I've always loved numbers, but it's such a practical way to look at life. I mean, I had no idea that you could grow your money in those ways, and I was completely hooked. And so I love that question.
I have to tell you, I find it very interesting, and I want to go back to something and make sure I heard you correct, Kris. And that was, you gave money numbers. If you put in 30,000, you'd end up with 32,000 versus 107,000. So you were actually talking about two very different investments. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
10,000 in investment one. Yep. 10,000 investment one turns into 30. 10,000 in investment two turns into 175.
Fantastic.
The only difference was the interest in those two investments, right? Started the same amount of time. The compounding on those different interest rates is why you have different amounts of money.
We have to pause for just a second and remind everybody, this is the Voice of Bold Business Radio, where we have 3 amazing guests today, and the questions are coming in. So keep sending them in. #VBB Radio. Let us know. We will get as many as answered as we can. By the way, aren't these gentlemen and women fantastic? I have to admit, I'm having a lot of fun here. And if you're listening and you're enjoying anything that they are saying and everything that they are saying, if you are me, like me, go rate this program. Tell us what you thought was fabulous. Subscribe to the Voice of Bold Business Radio so that you can see this program as well as others, not only in your subscription on YouTube or right here on Facebook, but also in your podcast platform of choice, iTunes, iHeartRadio, to name 2. And we're going to jump right back into this whole stuff about money. Now, I'm thinking about this in a business term, because as founders and partners and business owners, one of the things that I know comes up for many, many people, and in fact, my first business, we were like this. We didn't save. We were young and we were business owners. So we had a double whammy against us of no concept of saving anything. And some of that concept of planning for the future and knowing you've got to put money aside now so you have money later, it's still a foreign concept. And when we are business owners and we're strapped for cash and we're trying to get payroll and we're doing these different things, our financial future tends to be the last thing on our mind. Taking care of the day-to-day, making sure that the goals are met, making sure the people we employ are continued to be employed tomorrow, continuing to provide the service that we want. That is always in the front seat for most people. And so when we're thinking about that, what is like the most often overlooked thing a business owner does that they could remedy super quickly?
Ooh, I want to answer that.
Yes, go.
Because this was actually going to be my Easter egg. Was this very, very topic. So I changed it because I wanted to throw Kris Tower off. But so absolutely a huge mistake that I see business owners make is not putting money away for their own retirement. And I know it just seems impossible because you have to meet payroll and you have other expenses, but your older self should be priority number 1. That should be an expense. And if it's just, hey, no matter what the revenue is, how tiny, 10% of it goes away for my older self in a self-employed IRA or a self-employed 401k, which are super cheap and easy to set up, you should do that. And what's the benefit? The benefit now, A, you'll pay less in taxes. So I am really shocked at friends of mine who are business owners who come to me often around tax time, and they've been handed this huge tax bill from their accountant. They're like, well, I've been paying my quarterly taxes all along, but yeah, I knew I was having a better year than normal, but wow, I'm surprised at this tax bill. And their tax advisor never even suggests, how about opening a retirement account and instead of writing this check to the government, put it in your own account, get a deduction, get some tax relief. Not to mention the future benefits of, having your own money set aside for your future. I don't know that all business owners really think that they're going to sell their business for $1 million necessarily. I just do think that the tyranny of the bills now gets in the way of saving for their own future. And it's terrible to see people that have worked their whole lives and employed people and provided others with a livelihood. They don't have anything to show for it when they are no longer able to work. And that is heartbreaking.
So I think it's even a step back from that, actually. And the biggest mistake I see business owners make is they pay themselves last rather than pay themselves first. And, I will share an experience from my own history. I was in business for 10 years before I figured that out for myself. And a revolutionary thing happened about 5 years ago. I said, okay, I, as the owner of the business, am going to make this much money this year. And that is our first expense. And it's amazing how all the other expenses fell into line once I put that one first. It also prioritized, revenue growth in the business. And, from that gives you the freedom then to contribute to the retirement accounts that Kristi has mentioned. But, paying all the other bills, taking care of everyone else first, and then I get what's left over, is a trap I think many business owners fall into.
Okay, Brian is asking, how much does it cost to secure the services of a financial advisor?
Too much. No, I'm joking.
I was going to say there's two costs.
It costs a lot to hire Kris because he has such a high overhead for hairstyling products. So he is very expensive.
It's all relative to value. No, I think, so the one thing I think is a misconception about the industry is that it's a one size fits all, right? And like every other industry, the amount of service you need will determine generally the amount that you're going to pay. There are, a variety of ways to pay financial professionals. The traditional way that's been around for 100 years is paying a commission. When I do a transaction, I pay a commission. Most of the industry's kind of moved away from that these days. And most of the advisors that I know and work with charge some kind of fee arrangement. So either a flat fee like you charge an attorney, an hourly rate. Sometimes it's based on the amount of assets you have. But generally the complexity of your situation will determine the cost associated with that. So there's not just one number.
And I would say preference. I think some people would like the services of a fee-based program versus some people would like the services of a portfolio-based fee, just because there are different things that go into each of those along that spectrum. That was almost a question, but it didn't sound like a question.
I would agree, Jess, you're right. I think, and this is actually what's really hard probably for people to shop around for a financial planner. And I do think you should shop around. You should talk to more than one person. It does help to get referrals from your friends, people who work with someone who they like. Web searches can work, but there are two things you need to come to the table with, which is a description of what you yourself would like to get out of the relationship. And I think that's probably the hardest part for many prospective clients, but just tell people, what do you need? What don't you need? And then asking the question directly of the planner, how much will I pay to work with you? And if the planner can't answer that or give you a very straightforward answer, that may be a red flag that that's not the right fit for you. Or at least the planner needs to be able to very concretely describe how they determine how they charge a client. So for myself, I charge by the hour or by the project. I don't charge a percentage of assets, but other planners do. So it just depends on the kind of work that we do as planners and the kind of needs that our clients have. But I think it is a difficult shopping experience for most people because they've never done it before.
Most, and I'm thinking about this from the perspective of consultancies. Red Direction is a consulting company. That's what we do. Same issues apply, same questions apply, same pricing concepts apply. And, whatever, and I would say if it is how much, if cost is important, lead with that. However, if service is important, lead with that. What are your questions in those areas? Because and I don't know if you find this, I know the questions I get asked first, I understand they're the priorities, and then I dig to find out what makes them the priority right now. Because it could be a lack of cash. It could be a worry about how much it could cost. It could be because somebody got burned in the past and had a really poor experience. And so it's very interesting to apply your own problem solving and decision making skills to the types of things that you get, just like you would in your own business. These are the types of things other people are doing when they meet with you. Take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Take advantage of it. It's kind of it's a common thing that we all have, which I think is great. Okay, we have another question. Barb is asking, how can I convert my business into planned retirement income? I know that's open-ended and there's not enough information there. However, I think it's interesting because I do know some people have their businesses and they are expecting it to be their retirement plan, the income from it.
Yeah, so, I think that's a great question. I think it's also important to keep in mind that the vast majority of small businesses fail, right?
Only four in 100 will survive 10 years.
Right. So I think that's a key point to keep in mind. And so even of those 4 who survive in 100, in, I don't know how many years, was it 10 years you said, are going to make it all the way to the end. And someone mentioned earlier about someone coming to their mastermind group and the business owner being tired. I see that far more often. They go really hard, and then they're tired and they're quickly looking for a sale, and that doesn't maximize value. And so one of the things I always talk to people about in financial planning is start with the end in mind. Most people get it. I think a lot of people get into business because they're passionate about something or they see an opportunity, but they don't start with the end in mind. And so the first step in converting your business to a retirement plan is start with the end in mind. What does my exit look like? Is it better to sell the business? And if so, who am I going to sell it to? Am I going to sell it as an asset sale or a stock sale? Those are big questions to know the answer to. From my experience, I see a lot of people relying upon sale as an exit strategy, and it's not often realistic. The business generally gets sold for the client list. So the other option is, am I going to cash flow this business, right? Am I going to transfer this business to someone after me? And oftentimes it's the kids. And lo and behold, you talk to the kids and there's no way they want that business, right? I understand Dad spent 40 years making this plumbing company. I don't want to be a plumber, right? So starting with the end in the mind is the first step. And back to Kristi's original point, I think a lot of business owners rely on this large sale late in life to fund their retirement. And my experience is I don't see that happen very often, which is back to Kristi's original point in that you have to be saving along the way.
I can put a statistic around that too. 80% of businesses that are for sale do not sell.
Right.
So business owners, I'm not sure why you became a business owner like we did, but there's something that drew us to it, and just recognizing that there are some big obstacles that we have to overcome. We have to overcome being able to stay in business. We have to overcome getting through the burnout that we experience from time to time. We have to get over the fact that just because we're building this, depending on how we're looking at it, to your point, Kris, it may not be this dream come true at the end because of all kinds of things. Now I'm listening to the three of you, and all three of you do personal work, and you also are crossing the line with me into into the business side of things from your own business and from your client perspectives. And I'd like to just put out there that I really feel like we have a tax person, we have a lawyer, our financial planners. For sometimes our personal financial planners can be part of team business and understand. And if our personal financial planner isn't, go find one, because we need somebody like this to be helping make sure, just straightforward things. Where are your hangups with money? Because your hangups with money are going to show up in your business, and it's how you make decisions. And is that really what you want to be making your decisions around? When things are tight and stresses are high, the way that we're reacting, sometimes we need to be talked down a little bit and just listened to from a perspective of there is no need to be ashamed here. And because I have to tell you, even in the groups that I participate in, unless people know each other very well and for a long time, there's a vulnerability around sharing the hard parts of business. Everybody wants to see the successful pieces. Everybody wants to share what's great. They want to use that momentum. And so my next question for you is, personally, and this is a personal question for you and your business, is how do you deal with and who do you talk to when you do have a really hard time, when you're going through a rough patch and there's nothing exciting to say, and all the exciting stuff everybody else is sharing? I don't know about you, but I'm like, seriously, why can't that be happening to me right now? I go through those moments. Why can't that be happening to me right now? How do you deal with that when the times get hard?
Well, I'll jump in here. I am privileged to work with a lot of experienced people who are seasoned and have been through a lot of things. So it's nice to be able to talk to them. We have people that have expertise in different areas. And so when I do run into a rough spot, it's really nice to bounce ideas off of people that have already been there, that can offer some wisdom to the situation, so that it doesn't seem hopeless, because that's really what we're trying to do, is extend hope to people, put out a lifeline. And so that's what I tend to do, is to go to those people that have been there, basically, that can empathize with what I'm going through and offer some words of wisdom.
Yeah, I don't think a team of great advisors can be replaced. So I have a great attorney. I have a great CPA. They are an attorney and CPA that specifically the majority of their practice is working with small business owners, because I want to know their experience around people like me. I also mentioned the mastermind group. I don't think that I am a strong believer in small business support groups, because that's basically what it is, right? This is what I'm struggling with. What have you done? More importantly, what am I not seeing, right? We all have huge blind spots, and, being able to, so often I'll struggle with something and mention something to someone, and they will provide me a perspective that I hadn't even thought of that resolves the issue in very short order. The other big thing is I'm a big believer in mentorship. I have a mentor that is about 10 or 15 years ahead of me in business. And often I will go to him and say, hey, what have you experienced before also? So I am not shy about saying I don't know. I think that we've talked about this earlier. I think that is a huge benefit, especially in your own business. Everyone's tend to look to the boss, the owner, for the answers. And guess what? There's no magic answer tree that I go and pull from to come up with solutions to stuff. It's trial and error. And anytime I can benefit from someone else's experience, I try to be quick to do that.
Yeah, my 7-year-old just found a magic 8-ball.
Ah.
Yes.
Buy those for my kids so that I don't have to answer so many questions. I'm like, here, go ask the magic 8-ball.
Right? How does it know? Mama, how does it know? And I'm like, I don't know.
It
but
does say maybe a
you're
lot.
Supposed to know. I don't know. Right. And same concept of business. You see that. And I get the same. I'm like, oh, okay. I have to think about it at work. I have to think about that. I have to think about that. That's really great. You know, I don't have enough information yet. Let me think about that. I know there's an answer. I'm going to go talk to somebody who has been there before, whatever the scenario is, but actually modeling. I don't have all the answers, I think is an important piece in every walk of life.
Well, I also think it's important to push it back to the employees sometimes too. What would you do? What do you think the best answer is? Because oftentimes when they're bringing me the problem, they're the ones more familiar with the situation and generally have a pretty good intuition on what needs to be done. They're just looking for permission to do it.
Mm-hmm. Looking for permission to do it. Okay, so I want to know from you guys. We've been talking about mindset. We've been talking about leverage. We've been talking about just how to stay sane as we face different things within our business and the things that maybe cause emotional reactions that make us a little, insecure is one word, but also a little crazy, right? We get a little insecure, we get a little crazy. And so what would be from our conversation today or anything that our conversation brought up that hasn't had a place yet to show up? This is the place to share. What would you tell us that's been on your mind that we need to be thinking about right now for this, like I said, in relationship to this conversation, in relationship to something somebody said, we want to take something a little bit further?
Well, I'd say one thing is maybe the premise of your question, which is stay sane. I think in order to be a business owner, you have to be a little bit crazy to begin with. You bet your net worth on every good idea that comes down the road, essentially, right? You have to be a little bit crazy to be willing to do that. And generally that's, our practice is primarily small business owners. And that's generally a lot of what we try to do is, in order to be a small business owner, you have to be somewhat of a risk taker. And oftentimes it's us pulling them back on the risk. You take risk in every part of your life, every part of your business. Maybe your investment shouldn't be as aggressive as possible. So there's some balance to this also.
There's a thing called balance.
So I'm told.
I was going to say, ooh, I want to meet that person who has found that.
I'd like to piggyback on something Kris said earlier about the doing less when it comes to investments. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question exactly, but right now a theme. So if it's something that I want people to hear, a theme I'm hearing right now from a lot of clients and a lot of people I talk to is they're afraid to be invested in the investment markets because things are so crazy right now. Can you see my air quotes? Crazy right now. And I just want to tell everybody that things are crazy all the time. Okay. Right. There's always a time when you're not going to like the president. This country is never not at war. There is always craziness. There's always uncertainty. There's always something to worry about. But in the 40, 50, 60 years, you have to be an investor. Those things you'll forget them eventually. So I was just recently watching The Post, that movie, with Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep about the Washington Post and the Pentagon Papers. And it reminded me what chaos the 60s were. And people don't remember that we're always in chaotic times. So don't let that make you make emotional investment decisions, either to sell or to not buy or whatever. Just stay the course and mind your business, mind what you're doing, mind your raising your family, mind what you're doing the best you can, and keep taking one step at a time.
I would agree with everything that Kris and Kristi have said. Don't be afraid to move forward. The most dangerous thing that you can do is to stay still. So even though you didn't start investing when you were 20 or you're retiring soon and you're afraid to get into the market or afraid to move because you're paralyzed with fear, it's better to move forward than just to stay still, no matter how far you are to, how close you are to retirement. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, and I'd jump in on that. We mentioned it earlier, but it's never too late to start. You know, I think that's one of the things that we as an industry struggle with. I mentioned this before, telling people to start early. It's never too late to start, right? Starting early means you need to put less away every paycheck. But that doesn't mean there ever comes a point where it's not even worth starting. And I hear that so much from folks that I'll never get there, so I'm not going to try. That's kind of self-defeating. I mean, most people in their 20s are irresponsible. 20-year-olds are, big newsflash, 20-year-olds are irresponsible with their money for the most part.
What?
In the 30s, in your 30s, you're having kids, buying houses. In the 40s, you're maybe putting them, through college. And so oftentimes it's not till late 40s, early 50s, people get serious about saving. And so there's nothing wrong with that. We just need to have that be a priority, right? And so it's never too late to start. And some money saved is always better than no money saved.
Another pithy quote from Kris. I mean, they just keep coming.
I'm telling you, you all have pithy quotes, and Kris's are very bite-sized, though. I have to admit, he's got a lot of tweet-worthy stuff going on here.
Imagine living with me.
No.
Yeah. And it's time to wrap up.
I'm telling you. Everybody, thank you for watching today, because I will tell you, this is an amazing program, and we have a lot of things, and I want you to listen to this first and foremost from the financial planning perspective as a business owner, as somebody who is looking for financial planning advice. And then for those of us who are also business owners, for those of us who are also head of household, put those lenses on and replace the word financial planner with head of, anything around that, around financial plan, around business owner. And the reason is because all of the things that they are talking about, which is why I like the fact that these are Easter eggs that we've been talking about today, is they're applicable to all parts of our life. So the knowledge that you have here from Kittye, from Kristi, from Kris, that we can use not only to make changes right now and get more clear, get more solid, and be confident in the money situations that we're facing, both in our businesses and in our personal lives. We can also then apply those. They go to other parts of our life. And it's those of us, we get our wisdom when we can do that. And by listening to the Voice of Bold Business Radio, you're already ahead of the curve, because we do that on every show. We can apply all that we take away around one particular topic and use it to spark something, a conversation, and an idea, a solution to a potential solution to a problem right here that we're facing in our businesses today. This has been Program 146, Financial Easter Eggs in Business. You can find all the show notes tomorrow on voiceofboldbusiness.com/P for program 146. And I have to tell you, we are leaders in business today because we're taking the actions, because we're making the structures, because we're following through and making sure that it's okay to pick things up that we forgot about, or that dropped on the floor, or that just totally went out of our mind because of whatever reason it might have been. We want you to share your story. It's through the stories that you share. It's through the conversations that we have together that defines what leading a business means today. Join in the conversation at Voice of Bold Business. Rate this show. Leave a comment someplace. Let's keep this conversation going. You too can find your own Easter eggs in business.
Subscribe at thevoiceofboldbusiness.com and get more information, program notes, and past episodes. Bold leaders approach each situation and focus on action to achieve a higher level of leadership. Jessica Dewell, your business advocate, is the host of the Voice of Bold Business Radio. Thank you for joining us.